everyone, welcome back to another old plus new project. If you missed my video last month where I introduced this new series that a group of creators will be bringing you, I will link it in the description box below. Basically, we are taking old plus new. It can be old products, new ideas. It can be old products plus new products. Your interpretation is up to you. And then we give you a prompt. For this month, the prompt is Cosmic Color or Color Me Happy. You can find all of the projects from anyone who has created that has been inspired by this prompt by using the hashtag old plus new, and it's PLUS. Feb FEB 2022. For my card today, I want you to take a good look at it. It was inspired by this card from one of our creators in our group. Her name is Ashley Young. And here's a look at her project. You'll notice that she created two cards using very nice vibrant colors. She also used a frame on one of her projects, and that was the jumping off point for me today. Here's a look at the products that I'm using. Both of us love Lawn Fawn, so of course we both used Toucan Do It. I'm using Happy, Happy, Happy. I needed that word birthday. I wanted to create my own large sentiment, so I used the Oliver dies from Lawn Fawn. For my hibiscus flowers, they are much smaller, and I am using what is in my stash, so I did have that Toucan die from CottageCutz. This is an old die set from MFT called Wild Greenery, and this embossing folder is from Tim Holtz. I will have the products that I have used linked in the description box below, so if you're interested in any of them, please feel free to use those links. I'm starting with my very small hibiscus flowers. As I mentioned, I am using products that I already have. In Ashley's card, she used the beautiful large hibiscus flower from Lawn Fawn, but of course I didn't have that, and I was using her card as inspiration. So the idea is not necessarily to completely copy her card, but to use it as a springing off point. You'll notice if you go back and look that her toucans are in the bottom left-hand corner of her cards. I chose to place mine in either corner, so they're kind of catty corner from each other. When I colored these hibiscus flowers, I used some BG markers, so I used a BG 18, 13, and 11, and then I also used a Y marker. It may, I don't know for sure, the cap was on the screen, but it may be a Y14. I'm going to add the stamens. For this smaller one, I accidentally do it upside down, so when I start to adhere them to the card, of course I'm going to adjust that. Here's a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper. This is one of my news. So I purchased these watercolors back in November. They were a recommendation for Christina Warner. I have used them in a previous video on black cardstock, which is really where they shine. So pun intended. These are the most vibrant metallic watercolors on black watercolor paper that I have yet to see. I wanted to use them on white. Now, using them on white, the colors are not going to be as vibrant, so I am going to get a more muted tone. I thought I was going to go initially with more of deeper colors for my tropical theme, so like a darker green and darker oranges. After looking at this, I had a ton of sparkle. You'll notice that when I start putting these blues down that I'm not going to get the vibrancy that you see in the pan, and that's okay because I am going to be using my dyes. So that Wild Greenery die set from MFT, I'll be using that to cut out these from this panel. I want to mention that I'm not putting down this color beautifully. I am not worried about where the color's going. I'm just dropping in color and mixing them in. As I mentioned, because I am going to be using that dye, it will allow me to have different color variations. And I'm going to have a ton of sparkle, which I will again mention that is really hard to capture on camera. So I will do my best to show it to you, but I'm not sure that you're really going to see the sparkle that I did get. But again, this was super muted. I wanted that tropical feel. I decided that I wanted to use more of a citron color for the background on this, so I'm going to do a little bit of ink splattering. I don't have the colors for this. The color key wasn't available at the time when I pulled this out, but I do know one of the greens, I'm using two different greens. One of them is definitely a sap green, and then I'm going to add some Hansa yellow after I dry this panel off, and finally I'll add a little bit of orange, and that's going to give me more of a vibrant panel, so when I do cut out my foliage, it's going to have those little speckles in it. So back to the watercoloring, I did want to mention, if you've ever created a gel print and you really don't like it, this is a great way to use those panels. Take some of your foliage, take some of your word dyes, and use those to cut out from those panels. You're going to get a lot of color, and it's really going to add a lot of interest to your die cuts, as you'll see in just a moment. Now I'm going to bring in my Griffin Empress Mini, which is my newest die cutting machine. I absolutely love this because it has a very small footprint. It sits on the floor next to my desk. It's not heavy. I have slimline plates, so if I ever need to do any slimline die cutting, I can still do it with this machine. I did a review on this, and if you're looking for a mini die cutting machine, electric one, this one is fabulous. Of course, it's a little bit pricier than some of the hand crank models, but it also has a wider opening, so it will fit slimline as well as 4-inch die plates. Here's a look at my finished pieces. And look at how pretty those are. I really love that. And then I cut this piece down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I used my water bottle to spritz both sides. This is a 3D embossing folder, and I don't know the sandwich for my Anna Griffin. I have not used a 3D embossing folder with it yet, so I did take that over to my Vagabond. I cut out a panel from teal cardstock. I believe it's Audrey, it's from Simon Says Stamp. Anyway, I did cut it out to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and then I am going to off camera trim it down 1/16 of an inch on each side. I decided that I wanted to add 3 layers of color, so I will bring in a top folding card base that's going to be 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and it's going to be an orange. As you can see, I'm using those same colors on my toucan. So for the eyes, I used an orange. For the bill, I'm using some blues and some greens and a little bit of yellow. I'll add some yellow to his little feet, and then we'll start coloring the body. For the body, I used my C8 marker, my C6 marker, and then I believe the caps will be on the screen, but I believe I bring in a C4 to finish off the toucan, and I'm going to color the one on the right the same way. I stamped it out onto a piece of Copic Express It paper using my Brutus Monroe Raven Black ink. That Raven ink is good for watercoloring or for Copic coloring, so it's a hybrid ink. And then I took it over to my brother Scan and Cut, and I cut it out. Off camera, I cut the word happy. And again, I used those Oliver dies, and I used some Nina Desert Storm cardstock. So I wanted to have the background be really vibrant, and then you can see that the fronds and then the Nina Desert Storm is going to be a little bit more toned down, and then the toucans are really going to shine on the card. The reason that I chose to go with the alphas as opposed to a stamp that said happy is, number one, I wanted a bigger footprint on this card because my toucans are going to be very small, as are my hibiscus flowers. but I also wanted to make the word wonky. So it's going to go on a little bit crooked. I'm going to turn the letters here and there, and I felt like it gave the card a little bit more of a whimsical feel. I did add some foam tape to the back of my toucans. Per usual, I do like to use foam tape. I think that it adds just a lot of interest and a little bit of a wow factor to a card when somebody receives it. There's not a ton of foam tape on this, so super easy to mail, not going to cost you any extra postage, but it will just add a little bit more of that dimension and interest to the card. Here's where I'm turning those letters every which way. Off camera, I am going to add a little bit of Wink of Stella to the word happy. When I photograph it, you are going to see the shine on the word happy. It was much harder to capture it onto the die cuts because those colors do dry back and there is a lot of sparkle on there. It just, against the white cardstock, unless you're holding the card, it was super hard to photograph. I used a black gel pen to color the eyes of my toucans. And then I'm using my white gel pen to add those little bit of highlights to each of the critters. I'm going to have Ashley's video linked in the description box below. If you've never been over to her channel, which I can't imagine because she's so amazing, she does a lot of lawn fawn cards and she also designs for Huffy Doodle. So if you like critters and scene building and interactive cards, Ashley is the gal for you. As I mentioned before, I'll have all of the creators linked in the description box below. I stamped out the word birthday onto that same Desert Storm cardstock using the same Brutus Monroe ink. I cut down the word and then I added a little bit of foam tape, and I'm going to tuck those underneath my branches. I'm going to add my hibiscus flowers. I like odd numbers, so for the fronds, I used 4 at the bottom, 3 at the top. Here, I lost one of them. You know, my desk was clean. There was hardly anything on there, and I still lost that flower. But anyway, I'm going to put 2 hibiscus flowers at the bottom, and then I'm going to add this final one to the top, and that will finish off my card for today. So I do want to show you a close-up of this. There's the hashtag that you can use to play along. Please, 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 we really love to inspire you, but we love even more to find your projects out on social media. So make sure to tag us. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for joining us.